when we talk about ethics, work ethics. Ethics generally refer to principles by which behavior is evaluated as right or wrong, good or bad, and all based on the standard of what is right and what is wrong, and what ought to be done. What are the basic characteristics of positive ethics? Honesty, accountability, doing a good job, being part of the greater vision, humility, valuing what one does, hard work, fairness, punctuality, following process, what we call due process, dependability, efficiency, positive work habits, initiative, positive attitude, and teamwork. There could well be more, but from my own experience, I've been able to capture those that I've listed. And in my own estimation, humble estimation, the work ethics is less than satisfactory in this country. And this has led to underperformance of public institutions. I usually start by saying that those who are engaged in public service, in the public sector, are the privileged few in this country. Privileged in the sense that available statistics will show that all over the country we don't have more than, I don't think they're even up to 7 million people in the public sector in this country. And I'm not talking at the federal level. All the states inclusive, they are not more than 7 million. And if we still agree that our population is at the neighborhood of 180 million, 7 out of 180 is really, really privileged. That's why it's imperative that those who are part of the privileged few should and must endeavor to give their best to their fatherland that have chosen them out of about 180 million to do the work they are doing at this point in time. So whenever you proceed from the premise that I am a privileged Nigerian who has been found worthy to occupy the position I'm occupying, and I owe a duty to Nigerians to give the best in terms of service. When you move across to places like Ghana, also earlier colonized by the British, you find a different work ethic compared to what you see in Nigeria. And you ask yourself the fundamental question, why should that be the case? Where did we get it wrong? That is the major issue that obviously we have to confront. Where did we get it wrong? Why is the average Ghanaian exceptionally hardworking, believing so much in dignity of labor? But here in Nigeria, everybody wants to find the shortcut to earning one thing or the other, if at all it is even more or less to gather one thing or the other. So, yes, we have underperforming public institutions. We don't need to talk about the rehashed and always mentioned issue of corruption and sharp practices. So what could well be responsible? And we talk about lack of will by the political leadership to maintain and sustain a competent and motivated public service. Then, of course, the challenge of job security in some instances, the general decline of the economy in the country, and I dare say lack of objectivity in recruitment rewards and termination. Occasionally that can be a problem. I have not alluded to anything, but at the right time we'll obviously talk about some of them. Then we'll talk about poor compensation in some instances that does not keep pace with performance in other sectors of the economy, whether private or otherwise. What I do is that whenever I move to any institution or agency, as the case may be, I try as much as possible to look at the statutory functions of that agency, what obviously informed the setting up of the agency, what activities or functions that they are set up to achieve statutorily, as the case may be. And of course, you can see that the summary of the functions of Nesrea is before me, and so much enforcement here and there, amongst other things. In the course of our conversation, certainly we will try as much as possible to see how well we've done in terms of performance evaluation and how well we've been able to monitor those who are on the field amongst others, and whether you can score them highly or not. But again, at the back of your mind, part of the commanding heights of this organization is for you to appreciate and understand that certainly, and I want to believe that you do have your vision statement and your mission statement. What are they, and how well are they internalized by the staff of this agency? And how well does it obviously provoke you once in a while and invite you to make sure that at any point in time you live up to those expectations of your vision statement and your mission statement. I believe that is very, very important. Any institution, organization, or agency that does not adhere strictly and tenaciously to their vision statement and mission statement may miss the point somewhere along the line, because that is quite imperative. And that, for me, summarizes, to a very large extent, the statutory functions or expectations of that agency, as the case may be. So, anticipated productivity of each sector. I said that flowing from the functions enumerated above for you, there is no doubt that your activities are sectorial and zonal in character, since the whole country is under the coverage of this organization. So we have to, in some instances, examine your work ethics and performance evaluation sectorially. We have to look at what is proper for you, how well you have been able to achieve the enumerated functions. Perhaps there could well be a refuge taking whether or not budgetary allocations and funding are adequate, whether you have sufficient personnel and adequate expertise as far as the job functions are concerned, whether you've been able to build your capacity adequately both internally and externally, and what are the management priorities that you can think of, and then of course the issue of availability of equipment and facilities that will help you push the frontiers of the functions statutorily mentioned. Well, all these notwithstanding, this organization is expected to appoint, train, and nurture staff for all departments with a view to fulfilling all the statutory functions and roles. Well, I look at achieving optimal productivity. I said that work ethics can be examined against the capacity to actualize the functions of the organization. I also said that performance evaluation is according to functions and departments. Accordingly, the parameters will be strictly according to functions of the organization, and so on and so forth. Why I am talking sectorially and zonally is that at the end of the day, I want to pull together the issue of teamwork, because that's one thing that I notice is a major challenge occasionally in organizations in Nigeria, the issue of teamwork. Occasionally, people find it easier to work individually rather than working as a team. And I bet you no organization can achieve much in terms of productivity unless people work as a team. So teamwork is very, very cardinal and critical as far as this is concerned. Well, I talked about the challenges of enthroning proper work ethics. What are those impediments that could well be there? I talked about a clear disconnect between the employer and employee. Once in a while, notice that there is this disconnect. The management team, yes, you are here, but those down, they may not even know what you are talking about. Have you been able to communicate effectively? Is there any way of trying to disseminate information about the decisions of the management team to the extent that those under can key into it and also visualize with you to the best of their ability? Then I talk about lack of adequate welfare. That's always an issue. people generally talk to a very great extent about this issue of welfare. And I'm sure that during the question and answer period, as this is clearly interactive, most of you may also want us to address that. There's an aspect that I called in my own terminology, and it resonates clearly across the board, the issue of the policy of my papa job. Many people see government as distant. Many people see government as outside. Oh, government, you are there. I am here. But even though I'm working in a public institution, government is still distant. I believe that it is a mindset that we must correct. And I believe it's the management team that will help us to correct that mindset. If you are part of government, you are working in government, you are part of government. So it's your father's job. The job that pays your salary every month is your father's job. But even your father may not be able to pay that job at that month. A job that enables you to pay tax to the country is your father's job, among so many other things. A job that ultimately, even on retirement, will help to sustain you as a senior citizen and until the grave is your father's job. So basically, we have to sensitize ourselves and sensitize those under us to come to terms with the reality that whatever you are doing here in the government is your father's job. And what could well be more in terms of emphasis, it's only in Nigeria that people talk about oil money, or this, that, or people have looted this money, people have done this oil money. No. Anywhere in the world, that is why anywhere in the civilized world, the issue for election is usually tax. Are you cutting tax? Are you increasing tax? Everything, US, UK, everything is based on tax. Who are the people that pay tax? It's you. It's the taxpayers' money. So when people steal money, they are stealing the taxpayers' money. And when they steal your money as a taxpayer, you have, obviously, a stake. You become a stakeholder, and to that extent, whatever you are doing in government, you are part of government, because anybody that takes anything from government is taking it from you, because you are the part of the people paying that tax. So if we understand that and able to pigeonhole it accordingly, the philosophy of my papa's job will just disappear through the window. I talked about dishonesty. I don't need to expatiate on that. Poor remuneration in some instances is also a major challenge to the implementation of proper work ethics. Greed, job security occasionally, but I know that when you are in government as a lawyer, you should know that more or less your job is to a very large extent secure, and if anybody wants to do away with you, there must be a procedure that must be followed. If not, that termination or dismissal, as the case may be, can be overturned by the courts. No proper orientation. Orientation is clear. When people say, oh, they are going to the orientation camp for NYSC, it sounds a little bit distant. But in any office environment, when somebody wants to start work, the issue of orientation is very important. Because for you to put the person through, let the person understand what you do, how you do it, and so on and so forth. So, more often than not, those who don't key into the vision of management are those who are not properly, given the proper orientation, as the case may be. No fulfillment or satisfaction. That is very important for me. There must be fulfillment wherever you work. If you don't have fulfillment, I have a friend's daughter, first class in the law school, first class in the university, distinction at the master's level. Father is a governor somewhere, and the next thing, central bank. Before you know it, 1 year in central bank, she says she cannot continue there. So no matter how much she's paid or any other thing, I am not getting that job satisfaction. There's no fulfillment. And she's gone. She's out of the place. So it is not the monetary aspect of it. It's not the remuneration. It's not the allowances. Are you satisfied with what you are doing? Do you go home every day believing that you've added value or you have learned something? Once that is not done, I don't think that there can ever be proper work ethics. If you don't go through a file in a day or a file is not given to you, something is fundamentally wrong. You'll be thinking that this director doesn't seem to like me. No file is minuted to me, nothing. I'm not benefiting from what I'm doing. So it is important that we have that at the back of our mind. Let people have fulfillment and job satisfaction. Square peg in round hole, that exists. You are trained for enforcement. You are busy writing memos somewhere. That doesn't gel at all to a very large extent. Then the leadership aspect of it is key. We are all trained to be leaders. We're all trained to be leaders. I keep telling people wherever I go that even if you are level 8 or level 9 and you have joined a particular agency and you are not thinking that one day you are good enough and fit enough to become the head of that particular agency, then you are not good enough. Anybody is good enough to head an organization. So far as you devote your time and energy and work diligently and assiduously to make sure that you climb the ladder in such a way and manner that your services will to a very large extent become indispensable, and people will feel that the organization may, and that will not be correct, but the people may think that the organization may come to a halt without you. Have you found yourself in that position? Have you done your work in such a way? I've been to a place where we're talking about a file, and the secretary told me, no, a file does not last more than 24 hours in my boss's table. That is a testament. That's a testimony from a secretary about the boss. How many of us here will our secretary or our PAs or whatever say so about? The boss was not there, but somebody was able to say that. That whether or not anything happens, you don't see a file 24 hours on my boss's table. I think that, obviously, is the greatest sign of leadership you can think of as far as work ethics is concerned. Do we have developed norms and values? Are we properly motivated? People can be well motivated, as the case may be, depending on what are those things that can motivate people, promotion, rewards, amongst others. I believe we can discuss that. And low productivity and delay, lack of cooperation among staff, no teamwork, we state that, no connection to the vision of the organization, absence of systematic training policy. I believe that for an institution or agency of this nature, I'm sure you have your worked out training policy well lined up, and with much interaction I had with the DG the last time I was here, I felt that the organization is a very sound footing. Lack of supervision and discipline, appointments not based on merit. Appointments not based on merit. The pressure of the CEO in Nigeria is unbelievable. The pressure. And I'm sure that the DG can attest to that. I lived through that pressure for about 5 years. The pressure is unbelievable. From quarters that you least expect. So once in a while, chances are that there could well be such appointment not based on merit. Let us not go into it, but I can tell you that the pressure of the chief executive of this country is oven cooker hot. Shortage of skilled personnel. You have more than enough personnel here. And then, of course, victimization and politicization of staff recruitment and career progression. Reward system is that transparent. Abuse of power by superior officers, that happens from time to time. Then, of course, lastly, lack of patriotism or nationality. Quickly, I go to the leadership by example because I believe that leadership is key in some of it. The work ethic of staff is usually premised on example shown by leaders. So, two about it. In Igbo land, they say when the mother hen is chewing, the little one is watching. And that encapsulates what we mean by leadership by example. There's no two about it. Why would I bother to come to the office early enough or otherwise when I know that my boss has this established pattern of coming to office by 12 o'clock, as the case may be, if at all it does. So who is monitoring who? Who is supervising? And the same leaders are those charged with the responsibility to evaluate performance of staff below them and monitor their quality. How do you monitor when you are not there? How do you monitor when you are not even there? How do you evaluate when you are not? What are you going to say? So leadership, by example, is a critical ingredient in promoting work ethics. The general attitude of staff is to critique their bosses and look for excuses to deviate from laid down rules and guidelines, yes. It is the general attitude of those under you. It is commonplace for staff. I will not go to work today. My guy is never in the office. My guy is never in the office. Again, no work is allocated to me, so why should I go to the office? So you can see a challenge. So when you're a leader, even if you have such a situation whereby you may not sufficiently or adequately engage a staff, it is the mark of leadership, initiative, for you to see a way, a semblance of engagement, whatever it is, so that somebody will leave that day satisfied that, I was given an assignment by my boss. Whether it is tangentially related to what you are supposed to do as stipulated by the functions statutorily or not, is immaterial, but you have asked the person, do this. And so many young ones take away a lot of joy in the fact that their boss said, do this or do that. My boss does not bother whether I'm in the office or not. So what do if they are not? Those working under you, what do if they are not there? You just look the other way around. I'm sure that in this age of technology, I'm sure people here may have their ways of clocking in and clocking out, as the case may be, because that helps to a very large extent. Keep them on their toes. Make them to be accountable, one way or the other. Let them come to work when you want them to come to work, as the case may be, and insist on it. Gradually, they will get used to it. Whether they default one way or the other is immaterial. Systematically and gradually, you achieve what you want to achieve. There was that void when I took over as Director General, and I insisted that it must not continue, and I made it a policy that anybody who is working must come in and clock in, as the case may be. And I will give you this example. They do. Whether they are in Maraba or any part of Abuja, they will come by 7:30. They will clock in. But I can't tell you what happens thereafter. Because I made it imperative that you must clock in twice and then clock out by 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. But I can tell you, some of them, they clock in at 7:30, they go. They come back at 12 to clock in again, and they go, and they come back by 4 to clock out. But I said to myself, yes, this is a starting point. The inconvenience of you are going and coming is enough for me. That inconvenience, you go and come, is enough for me. But gradually everybody started keying in, and they now realize that, well, it does not really worth it going and coming, and they started staying, and of course we occupy them with work. So you could see that to a very large extent, we make them what we want them to be. We help them to achieve what we want them to achieve. Loyalty to organization. Loyalty to organization is very, very important. But when we talk about loyalty to organization, what do we mean by loyalty to organization? I was at BPE earlier in the year on this same missionary journey. And I make bold to tell them that, look, BPE is no longer the BPE we used to know. Either you have marketed yourself out of the system or something went fundamentally wrong. And that's one mistake nobody should make. Relevance of an organization is key to loyalty of staff. You must remain relevant, and you force yourself to remain relevant. It's very, very important. When El-Rufai was in BPE, BPE was a toast of this country. Everybody wants to work in BPE. But I don't think that if you dash some young ones coming out of BPE now, they want to take it with 2 hands, even when they feel they've been in the job market for more than 10 years. So what suddenly went sour? Not necessarily the remuneration, not necessarily any other thing, but the point is that they have refused to be relevant anymore. Either because the dynamics are such that the leadership has not been able to find a way of fashioning out a way of sustaining the relevance of that organization. So one thing is that leadership must never allow staff to think that they are no longer relevant in the scheme of things. There are some places you go, before you ask question, where do you work? People are in a hurry to say, I work in Nesrea. Means that there's a little bit of loyalty. But some people will go with your card, and by the time they step out of that place, they will remove it and put it in their pocket. It shows that they are not proud of what they are working. If they are proud, they want to carry it even if they are in any vehicle, so that people will give them that respect. Because that is the name of an agency that resonates so well, and people want to identify with such an agency. So, for you to be loyal to an organization, the branding of that organization must be such that one really has to be loyal to it. What is the key? What is key is the appointment and interview of staff at the point of entry. How do you interview your staff? How do they come in? That also is very key. When people think that it is slightly rigorous for them to go through the process of coming into an organization, they tend to respect that organization. When you put the standards a little bit higher than the ordinary, people tend to, for you to work in Nesrea, it'll be easy staying. It's not easy. It's not just all this jumping on job. You have to go to, you have to, then systematically you find that people tend to respect that organization. And then those who are outside are now more inclined to thinking there must be something there that will make them put the bar the way they put the bar. What prompted them to join or apply to the organization? Because this is a simple aspect of it. When you interview people, the first thing you do is ask them, why do you want to join this organization? We used to do it in our own time. Why do you want to join this place? What it requires is that for anybody to want to come to Nesrea, the functions that I've enumerated, the person would have spent time to digest, internalize, and every other thing, so that you have a clear picture of where you are coming to work. So once we ask you, where do you want to work here? What do you understand about the functions of why? That forms the basis of your interview. Once you are not able to grapple with that effectively, then you don't belong here.